and welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of strength and conditioning and pushing the limits of athletic performance with your host, Joe Ryan. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, tactics, and innovations that make athletes stronger, coaches smarter, and the sports we love even more thrilling. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or just a fan of the game, we've got something for you. We'll be talking to some of the brightest minds in the industry, sharing their insights and experiences, and uncovering the methods behind the madness of high-performance sports. So tune in, turn up the volume, and let's get ready to learn, grow, and be inspired. This is the Moffitt Method Podcast.
A man that really needs no introduction to the podcast named after him, Coach Moffitt. Welcome on in.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me on, man. I've been looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Me too. You know, it's been kind of getting schedules together, and you know, Texas A&M is on a roll right now, and you kind of get a little bit of time. You know, I know next week is the bye week, but this week's a big week for y'all, and you know, get you on here on a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, Coach. So, you know, everybody knows your story. They wouldn't be listening to the Moffitt Method if they didn't, you know, but, you know, you were able to have, 53 episodes before kind of taking on the Texas A&M, 53 episodes as the host of this podcast. And, you know, you never really got to tell your story, though. And I know people have heard it on different podcasts, but, you know, kind of give us a little insight on Coach Moffitt and where he's been and where he started and how he got to Texas A&M, the number 3 ranked Aggies.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I appreciate it again. So I really got started in my mom and dad's basement. I had older brothers that lifted weights. They were athletes. My dad kind of was a strong man back in the day. So we got started lifting in the basement as kids. I had a great junior high school football coach who, believe it or not, trained us. And, you know, back in, that would have been the mid 70s. I was training with my junior high school football coach, and then went on to high school, continued training there. But then when I started playing football at Tennessee Tech, I had a phenomenal strength coach, Jack Williamson, who had played at Kansas State in the Big 12 when Nebraska was real big into training. So Jack is the person who ultimately led me to believe that this was something that I could do and make a living doing it. And Jack and I are still tight. In fact, he texts me before and after every football game and has done that forever. So we're still real close, you know, and have a great relationship. But I left college. I tried to apply for high school jobs all over the state of Tennessee. And all I wanted to do was to be a strength coach. And I just couldn't get a job back at my high school. They didn't have a strength coach. It was the football coach's responsibility. So I ended up talking to a college roommate of mine who was coaching in New Orleans, Louisiana at John Curtis Christian School. And their strength coach, Jesse Barksdale, had just left John Curtis to go to Tulane to be an assistant. And so I got the head coach's phone number, and we played phone tag because that was before pagers. That was before answering machines. That was before call waiting. And so we kept playing phone tag. So finally I got him on the phone and we interviewed on the phone, and I took the job at John Curtis without seeing it. I was there for 6 years. I was the head strength coach, never taught a class. I was in the weight room 6 periods a day, and I had a planning period that coincided with lunch. And I coached every team at the school in the weight room. So all the athletes came to the weight room and trained with me. And then I was offensive line coach for the football team. I was the head wrestling coach and assistant track coach, responsible for all of the sprints, or really all of the running, but primarily because of the school and the demographics. You know, we were real good in all the sprints and the hurdles, 400, 800, really good in those events. And So I got to meet a lot of college coaches that were coming through recruiting our kids because we had a really good program. In fact, they're still really good. You know that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so they're the head coach there at the time. I was there for his 300th win coaching, and now he has surpassed probably 650 games, I guess. He's the winningest coach all time in all different levels of football, high school, college, or pro. So he really was the one who taught me how to coach, and he allowed me to experiment on the kids, those poor kids, but he did everything he could possibly do to cultivate an appreciation for this and the research and studying and going and asking people and traveling all over the place. That's how I actually met Coach Hatch. He insisted that I go see Coach Hatch and talk to all Johnny Parker and Al Vermeil and Al Miller were all friends of his. So I contacted all those people, and I developed my philosophy as a young high school football coach. I was probably 23 or 24 years when I started there. But as I began to say, all these college recruiters were coming through the school, and Coach Philip Fulmer and Randy Sanders were two that visited our school a lot from the University of Tennessee. They recruited New Orleans and Baton Rouge really heavily. And so I got to be tight with them, and they would watch me train my guys, and we'd watch film together. So Tennessee had gone through a change. They had Bruno Pauletta had resigned to go to work for his company that he started. It was called Strength Systems, and it's still out there today. And they hired John Stuckey, who at the time was the head strength coach at Arkansas. And Coach Stuckey and Coach Curtis knew one another. And Coach Curtis went to Arkansas, and he knew all these people. And so when I went to interview, Coach Stuckey and I hit it off really well. And so I got my first collegiate start at the University of Tennessee. I was at Curtis for 6. I went to the University of Tennessee for 4. What I call the Peyton Manning days. Peyton was our quarterback, and a guy that they had signed out of New Orleans. And so then we were in Miami playing the Orange Bowl, and I met Larry Coker, who at that time was the offensive coordinator for UM. I met him in the lobby of our hotel. He had come over to talk to some of our staff guys that he had coached with at Oklahoma State years ago. And so we strike up this conversation, and then he talked to Coach Davis, and Coach Davis called me over the next day for an interview. So that at Miami, that was my first head coaching experience that I got in college. And I was there for 2 years when Coach Saban got the job at LSU. And there were some people that worked within the athletic department and within football that I had met while I coached at Curtis. And they just recommended me for the job. And I got cold called by Coach Pete Jenkins. And Coach Pete recommended me also. You know Coach Pete.
Oh,
Everybody knows Coach Pete.
Everybody knows Coach Pete, especially if you went to the lineman camp growing up in Louisiana.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm blessed to work it every year, and Coach Pete's got those defensive guys working.
Yeah. So Coach Pete is another person that recommended me to Coach Saban. And so Coach Cole called me and offered me the job while we were actually headed to the Gator Bowl. So I spent 22 years coaching at LSU, and I got let go by Brian Kelly. I was off for 2 years, started the Moffitt Method, and when Coach Elko got this job, I had one of my former assistants that was working at Duke, Jeremy Jacobs, and Jeremy told me that the strength coach at Duke wasn't coming to A&M. And so I thought that was a great opportunity to get back into college coaching. And so I called Coach Elko up and actually drove over here from Baton Rouge. We talked that night, and then he asked me when I'd come to interview. I said, tomorrow. He goes, well, I don't think we can get a flight. And I said, Coach, I'll drive over. And so I drove over here to College Station, and on the way back that afternoon, they called me and told me that they had offered me the job. So just incredibly blessed. I've worked for some great people, great football coaches. I've had some great assistant coaches that have gone on to be head strength coaches, and just, truly blessed to be in this position and have the career that I've had
Yeah, and I
for
think
38 years now, I think.
yeah, almost 40 years. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, Coach, is they see you as Coach Moffitt, the collegiate strength coach. You were
Mm-hmm.
spent 6 years in high school. You
Yeah,
got to bide your time with that. I think, and a lot of
yeah,
myself included, when I was a little bit younger, was, I got to get to the next job and I got to figure out the next thing, and I got to, but being where your feet are, and just
yeah.
learning from a guy
Gotta
like
believe
Coach
it.
Curtis at John Cur. River Ridge is a great little town. I love
Yeah,
River Ridge being right there by the levee, and it's a great
yeah,
spot. Your first 6 years, and you a part of history. You talk about
yeah,
the winningest coach in all levels
yeah,
of anything, and a great spot to be in. I think a lot of young coaches that are listening to this, that's a testament to that's how you make a 38-year career. Is
yeah,
you be where your feet are in the beginning.
yeah. And I was really patient. I had been offered some jobs um, while I was at Curtis, but my wife and I were we were very confident that the job would happen if all I did was work hard.
Right.
And it was really rewarding because we were winning state championships in a lot of different sports. And so I was training some of the best kids in the city of New Orleans and the surrounding area. I mean, we had kids from Edgar, St. Charles Parish, kids coming from West Wego and Marrero and Algiers. Kids were coming from all over this metropolitan area to play sports at our school. And again, I was patient, and I developed I developed my philosophy on what I thought the training for combat sports should look like. And then it also allowed me to take my time and really become the best coach and the best communicator that I could. And I think that's critical for young coaches today.
Absolutely, and I think it, like you said, it helped you build your philosophy and figure out the way you want to do things with those sports, and especially at the high school level. They're young athletes. You treat them like
Mm-hmm.
athletes. When I hear people tell me all the time, "Oh, well, coach, we need a softball specific workout." Well, tell me what that looks like, because
Yeah,
these are just 14 to 18-year-old kids. They just need to be better athletes.
right,
The meat and potatoes of what you do is what you're going to do with everyone. Oh, there's some
right.
things maybe in the way you condition or the way you sprint, or, you know, little things in the weight room. Yeah, there's some things, but figuring out in such a great place, right, with superior athletes, helped you get to where, hey, here we are. We're at Texas A&M
Yeah,
and we're having a ball,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
A lot of fun.
tell us a little bit of how you started this. I know, LSU, after 22 years it ended. You had a few. I remember kind of when you started it and you had your first booth at the coaches convention in Baton Rouge. I remember that,
Yeah,
and kind of get it off the ground. You and Coach Bruce um, kind of had this idea. Tell us about this.
yeah. So I've always been very open about talking to people on the phone and, emailing back and forth from high school and collegiate coaches. And so my entire career, people have always reached out to me and want me to send them workouts or want me to give them advice on their son or daughter. And so, and I missed being involved with a team and doing what I love to do. So I thought of starting this company. And so I spent a couple of months. I had a notebook and I was just jotting down notes and just really trying to develop, a business plan and how I wanted to go about the business. And then I started talking to, thinking and talking to people about a platform to launch the product on. And so one day, and I knew Matt, who is involved in our company, the CEO of our company. Matt had he and Mike Cashew had started Brute Strength, and Matt, and I had a similar growth a pattern of growth. He had Coach Hatch and I had my strength coach, and I knew Matt because he was coaching my kids. And when Matt was young, I actually watched Matt lift in competitions and stuff. So I went over to Catholic to talk to Matt about which platform he liked and to compare and contrast them. And during that conversation, Matt was like, Coach, we sold Brute and I'm kind of bored and I'd like to start something else. You know how Matt is.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we just started just sitting there talking, and then we actually shook hands that day. And so we became a partnership. And so then we went about, developing, the platform, and we hired Rob. And so it just took off from there. And it was just an opportunity to continue to be involved in strength and conditioning, and working with high school coaches, primarily high school coaches, football coaches and baseball coaches and basketball coaches who didn't have a strength coach or someone that they felt comfortable being in the weight room with their players, or having someone that they felt could supervise the group, but just didn't have the toolbox and the knowledge base and experience of writing programs. And so that's how it all started. And we were here for the kids and the coaches, and our goal was to help these, coaches help their teams be the very best that they could be.
Absolutely. And, as much as we as strength coaches all wish everybody had them, because no one can deny it's the backbone of athletics, of the athletic department in general.
Yeah, it's the best job in all of athletics.
Absolutely. Nobody's going to spend more time with the kids, maybe athletic trainer a little bit, hopefully they're not in there a lot, but nobody's going to spend more time than a strength coach. And it's important to have those people. And I think through the Moffitt Method, y'all have kind of turned some schools into creating the position of a strength coach.
Right.
And using the Moffitt Method as that platform to help them build upon it. I know from what Matt's told me and just listening to you that it's gotten bigger and bigger. And even in the state of Louisiana here, it's growing, and you see more schools pop up with, hey, we're going to create a strength coach because this school has it. And that's how we're going to get ahead. And that's how we're going to compete. And that's how we're going to take our teams to the next level.
That's right.
And it's grown so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun watching it. And, I had big aspirations of being able to come here and continue the podcast, which was something that I really enjoyed doing. But it's just the workload here just doesn't allow me to do this, because it's, I guess over the 2 years of being out, I forgot how busy I was, having so much fun at LSU. I forgot how busy I really was. And so I apologize to everyone for not being able to finish the podcast, but it's been fun here, and it's been rewarding, and the Moffitt Method has continued to grow.
Absolutely, Coach. And it's I listened to you the other day. It was an old clip, but it popped up on my Twitter feed talking to T-Bob on one of his podcasts about the whole time you were out, you're learning and you're seeing what's new and what has changed in the weight room, which we know when it comes to the weights, not much is changing, but technology is ever growing, right?
Right.
So what's kind of the biggest difference after a 2-year layoff that you're seeing into the past year and a half you've been at Texas A&M?
Yeah, so probably the biggest difference is the transfer portal. Because kids, they don't hang around as long as they used to. When you signed a kid, you knew that kid was going to be there, or that young man or young woman was going to be there at a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 5. So you had ample amount of time to develop them. So now that's not necessarily the case. And now we haven't had this issue, but there are some kids that are at a school for one semester, and then if they don't have that immediate self-gratification and become a starter, they're going to pull their roots up and head somewhere else where they think that the grass is greener on the other side. So that was something that I had to get used to. And now there's only one portal window now, but before this next portal window, we had two portal windows a year. We had one as soon as the season was over, and then we had, one at the end of May and June. And so they've gotten rid of that. So the amount of time that we spent recruiting was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And it went on forever and ever and ever and ever. But now there's only one recruiting window for the portal. And so that's going to make things a lot easier. But so that's the biggest difference above all else. The second thing is I've always been an afternoon program, where you spend your mornings planning and training, and then you practice in the afternoon. But here at Texas A&M, our kids show up at 6:30 in the morning. They have mandatory breakfast. They go eat. Then they go to the training room. They get treatment. Then they get dressed. They have meetings. And then we head outside for practice. And then we finish practice around 11:30 every day. And on our training days, we start our first group at noon. So they get out of practice at around 11:30. They go to the training room for that group, because we have 3 groups a day, 12, 2:30, and 4:30. So that group, that first group, goes to the locker room. They change. Then they go into our fueling station, and they get something to eat and hydrate. And then they come in here and begin their training. So that's all been different to me. Never experienced that before. So that was a big change and required more adjustment than anything.
Is that something that Coach brought over from Duke, or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way.
And it helps a lot academically because, in the afternoon, so your kids go to class all morning plus train, and then they go to practice. And then at night, they're exhausted and they don't like going to study hall. They go straight home.
Oh, yeah.
But here we get all of our athletics done by noon. And then by 5:30 in the afternoon, our kids are done. They're completely through with school, academics, and everything. So our kids are able to leave at 5:30 in the afternoon and go home. So instead of 7 o'clock at night, some of our meals didn't begin until 7 p.m. in the old system. So now our kids finish their workday a lot earlier, and it's good for the coaches too, because for us in the end season, come 5:30, I'm able to go to the house, and during the off season, our coaches get off at 5:30 as well. So it's a great trade-off as far as time off and quality of life.
Yeah, it helps everybody.
It's a lot different
mentally, right? I mean, you're just less. I don't want to call it burnout, because I'm. Yeah. Just like you, I never get tired of showing up to work and doing what we do. It's great. But, it gives the kids, and because, for those of you that didn't have the opportunity to play college athletics, it's a grind. I mean, I hate using the word grind, but it really is a grind, that it is a job day in and day out. And I think for some, they don't understand that when they're getting into it. Everybody wants to play college athletics, but that's your job for 4 to 5 years or 3 years now, some people, but it's such a grind, and that's got to help their mental sharpness and less burnout, and especially for coaches. I mean, that you touched on it right there. That is huge, and very similar to high schools where they're doing the no sweat Wednesday, right? They're doing that. Yeah. I know they do it. I know your boys did it over at Catholic with Coach Bruce, where you're giving your coaches more time and you're giving your kids more time to actually be kids and spend time with family and do the things that are important, because all that stuff is just as important as the job. Yeah. So that's huge. That's a big difference than what you're used to, right? But it's definitely showing its success, right? I mean, you got your guys rolling right now.
Yeah. But and then as far as programming goes, there's really no big difference in how we program. Because you touched on it earlier, there's the only way that you get stronger is to lift heavy weights. And so, we do a lot of different stuff, but it all starts with the barbell. And the only way that you're going to get faster is to run fast. Now, the planning and organization of all of that, has changed over time, but The means and methods that we use here are almost identical to what I did as a high school coach. And I've never been one to change philosophies and do a lot of different stuff. I felt like it was important to me as a coach to develop a philosophy on training and then stick to that and see how it evolves over time. And instead of making mass changes in, how we train our guys, we more like micromanage it and make very subtle changes and then take our time and wait and see how that affects the overall product. And there's ebb and flow to anything that you do in every athlete. So, we've got a lot of data from my time that we had here at LSU. I have assistants on our staff that was at LSU with me that went on to other places after we got let go and have come back. And when you compare the LSU, whether it's the 2015 team to the 2019 team, to our team last year, to our team this year, they're all different because our kids are different. Not every young man, not every 16-year-old man is the same. Just like our 19 to 23-year-old players now, because you get those extra years.
Yeah.
But not all of our players are the same. And you can take the exact same metrics from last year and compare them to this year, and they're different, whether it's high speed, distance, and do the same workout, the same practice as you did a year ago today. And those practice metrics and our strength training metrics are different because of the DNA of our players, the quality of our players. And the higher you get up the genetic pool, the better your athletes are and the more dynamic they are, the stronger they are, the taller they are. So if you just add height, then your peak power is going to change on squats and cleans. If I have longer arms, it changes the mean power and the peak power of an exercise for a particular weight because the guy's either going to have shorter or longer levers. And so all that is ever changing. And so that's why I never was into wholesale changes on our strength and conditioning philosophy. And it's so when something what didn't look right, then I knew how to go back and change it because I've done the same thing for years and years and years and years. And so we really haven't changed much. We have more data now than we've ever had. But as far as the means and methods, there's really no big change.
And that's what I think a lot of people miss the mark on, Coach, is everybody tries to look for the newest and the best thing. And I get the technology involved in everything. I really do. I understand the VBT, the GPS. I understand all that's it's helping the game grow, but a lot of people miss the mark on if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What I call the meat and potatoes. And you're a lot of, I'm the same thing in high school. When people ask me for stuff, I'm open book here, take it here. Here's how I do this. Here's how I do that. What I do here might not help you there. I don't know.
Exactly. Because you got different kind of athletes.
Absolutely. And I think it boils down to culture, right? I know some guys that don't like to share anything, and it's like, we're all doing the same stuff, but it's your culture that's the difference in what you do. That's the main thing. It's not that you're doing something that's this innovative, groundbreaking, new philosophy that nobody knows about. It's just how your culture's built. You can keep that culture and you can do great with how you do with your kids, and how I do it with mine might be different.
Yeah. I'm surrounded by books that they're older than I am. And, the stuff in them is still really pertinent to what we're doing here. Instead of going out and buying new books and spending more money on newer books, I'm going back and looking at older books from the 70s and the 80s and even older than that. And there's really good stuff in there that has stood the test of time. instead of looking for something on Twitter and seeing something on Twitter and say, hey, I'm going to throw that in there. But I wouldn't know what the long-term effect of that exercise or that distance or form of periodization is going to affect me. And, just we have found that I can do something on Tuesday with our offensive linemen, and I notice a change 3 days later in how, whether it's what their peak power is or, there's just so many different metrics that we look at. But you can be cruising along, making gains for weeks upon weeks, and then you change one little thing, and then you're going to see a drop in RSI or jump height or time to take off, or you'll see one little bitty thing and you wouldn't think that it was going to negatively impact you, but it does. And so that's why I've always stuck with what I know that works.
Yeah, I've been testing our baseball guys every Thursday on their vertical. They'll come to get 2 verticals throughout their workout. Don't care when you do it, but our intern takes care of getting their height. Yeah. And we knew when they started doing inner squat stuff, because the Louisiana rules have completely changed. There's no 4x1s anymore. It's ball all the time now. And we knew as soon as that happened, we track everything as far as where's your height week to week, and we give it to them, but we do a team total. Where's the team at right now? So
exactly.
And we saw a drastic difference when they started their inner squat, and we knew it was coming, and we told them, guys, we knew this was coming. We knew that there was a different variable to what your week has been looking like compared to what it is now. Yeah, your height was way better 2 weeks ago. Don't forget, now not only are you working out, now not only are you getting this jump, but you're also inner squatting 2 days a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And you miss development like that.
Mm-hmm.
You miss time that you could spend developing your players. There's physical preparation, and there's technical preparation, and there's tactical preparation. And if you spend too much time in technical and tactical, then you miss out on your physical development. And you may pull an overtake better than you've ever done in your life, but you just don't have any ass when you make contact. And so you got to make sure that you keep everything in perspective, because there's no rules in college anymore either. And this has been going on. Looking back in 2020, so we won the national championship in January of 2020, and I don't remember when the game was. The game was probably on I'm going to say, I'm going to take a shot somewhere between the 9th and the 13th of
Coach,
January.
I don't remember that either. I was there, and I don't even remember that one.
But so when we brought our players back to school, and school had already started when we played the national championship. So we bring our guys back, and we had 2 practices before we had started our first workout. We had already practiced twice in January and just finished winning the national championship. And so you got to be careful with all of that technical preparation to make sure that it doesn't negatively impact your physical preparation. So, and when you said that, I knew exactly where you were going, because as soon as you start technical and tactical preparation, some of those gains that you've made in jump height and time to take off and peak power in here, even your hamstring strength on the Nord board, or your squats, even if your main velocity and back squat, everything starts dropping as soon as you start practicing football, because it's a different type of stimulus. And so you have to watch that and make sure that you don't overdo it.
Yeah, I tell our kids
all the balance.
Yeah,
there's a delicate balance.
I tell our kids all the time, day one's the best you're ever going to feel all season long. You'll never feel this fresh again, and it'll never be the same again. But we do a good job of managing where you're at.
That doesn't mean that you're not striving to recover, and so that reminds me of something else that I think we've done a good job here with, and that's feeding our football players. I think it's the feeding, our fueling station, the supplements that we have available for them, all of that, I think, has been a big improvement over what I was used to for so long. And our players are holding their weight longer in season than they have in the past. And I think it's because of how we feed them and what we have available for them. So that's another area.
You think the schedule has a little something to do with it too, with that?
Yeah, so we make breakfast and lunch mandatory. And then anyone who is, so those are our two mandatory meals a day, and dinner is voluntary. But if you're not at a certain weight, based on your position and, the average at your position and what your structure's like, if you're not at your ideal weight, then you have to come eat dinner. And so Monday night is my night. Each of the full-time assistants takes a night, and there's a nutritionist there also from our staff. And we make sure that those guys who are underweight are there to eat dinner. And our guys here can eat, as much as they want. Athletes can eat, in some places they don't have that.
Yeah, they don't.
And that's one thing that I've learned from the guys that we've gotten in the portal, where, some of these guys come and they got one meal a day. And on Monday, it was baked chicken. On Tuesday, it was spaghetti and meat sauce. And Wednesday might have been hamburgers. And Thursday, tacos, And then they come here and they see all the food that we have available for them. They don't take that for granted. Whereas if you have a 5-star kid that you spent 2 years whining and dining and recruiting him, and all he knows is Texas A&M University, and you bring a kid in from Bowling Green or UT Chattanooga or someplace where they didn't have the same resources that we have, those kids are much more appreciative of this good food after eating Subway sandwiches on for a pregame meal.
Yeah.
So our guys have done a really good job of fueling for performance, and it's helped us keep our weight on here.
Yeah. So, you talked a little bit about this, the Twitter, and I want to ask you, maybe this might turn to a story. I saw a video not too long ago of one of y'all's guys. It might have been 585 on the bar, but we had bands, about 60 pounds of band. Coach, that had to be a very, very, I don't want to call it top squat in the program right now, but impressive. I mean, that's a powerful kid. Was that an in-season thing or was that preseason?
I can't tell you.
No. Still, either way.
It was preseason.
Yeah.
It was preseason.
I figured
it was preseason. But and so the goal that day was like 0.5 meters per second. And this guy was like 0.73, 0.74 meters per second. And he ended up squatting 705 for a single.
Goodness.
And that was like 0.47 or something meters per second. So that wasn't even his max. But we had two really good squats. We had a 705, could have been a lot more, but we're not in the business of doing that.
Yeah.
And then we had our nose tackle, or really he's not a nose, he's a 3 technique, but he moves up and down the line, but Al Regis. So, Chase Pasantes, number 71, our left guard, is the guy who squatted 685 that you saw, 675 that you saw, but he ultimately squatted 705. And then the other guy is Al Regis, number 17, one of our tackles, who squatted 675 on test day. And his was fast too. His might have been a little faster than Chase's. So, and that's a good thing, So, in the old days, we max guys out to see how much they could lift. But now I just put velocity stops on our guys, when we're training heavy, because now what I am a big believer in, it doesn't matter if it's the second week or the 5th week or the 12th week of in-season training or off-season training. If a guy is rolling on that day and it's a heavy squat day, and whether it's a set of 5 or a set of 4 or a set of 3 or 2 or 1, if he feels really good and tells us he feels really good, and we've got sets of 3 going, we'll set a 3-rep PR. But when we're doing heavy doubles and singles, we give our guys velocity stops because we don't want them going so slow that they're at risk of injuring themselves. So we're very safe in that regard. But having, the technology like Perch allows us to do that. In fact, the entire off season, we only had guys drop bars maybe twice in back squat because we watch them so close with Perch. And our kids understand Perch. Every time that we're squatting or benching or cleaning or pulls, whatever, there is a velocity range that we give them. And so they're very in tune to how much they know. And they'll come and tell us, Coach, I did X number of pounds today at 0.7. I've never done that before, and they know what their jump height and their RSI is too. So when a guy PRs on the force plate, the first thing he does is come tell us, Coach, I jumped to 26 today. So it's really good having all this because it motivates.
Absolutely. That's what I was just about to say. The little intrinsic motivation that just pushes them to get that much better and want to reach the next number and reach the next height of everything. Yeah, and you see a lot of that, and I think that's where the technology really, really takes off with being able to see those raw numbers and see what they're looking at. One of our mutual friends here, Gary Frank, him and I had a talk about
oh God, what a man.
Phenomenal human.
And, I was talking to one of my coaches the other day, and I kept saying Gary Frank. And he's a good strength coach on my staff. I'm not going to embarrass by telling you his name, embarrass him, but he didn't know who Gary Frank was. And I had to pull him up, and say, this is Gary Frank. But I'm sorry.
Coach. Gary, but just like him and I had a conversation about velocity-based training. Gary's still, Gary's Gary with hardcore barbell. We're going to push him. And, obviously he's not into the technology world. And his big thing was, I can hear the bar and see the bar. And I think that's a little lost art too these days.
Yeah.
Not to say that all of the technology is not great, but it's a lost art to see and hear that bar and know, all right, that kid's moving it fast and that kid has more in them, or we need to shut that kid down because an injury is about to happen.
Yeah. So I'll have my back turned to a group of guys and I'll hear one of them do a clean and I'll spin my head around because you can hear a good clean. You know what a good clean sounds like. And,
especially with, obviously there's different plates and bar, but when you have a great plate, you have a great bar, you can hear that clean. Exactly. It's one of my favorite. It's my second favorite sound of the week. My first favorite is obviously hearing chains up and down. I love the sound of chains early in the morning. There's nothing. Everybody gets annoyed with it, but I just love the sound of hearing the chains.
They get loud.
And it really just there's nothing better. Energy drink, coffee, all that's great, but hearing that really, really gets me like, all right, it's on now. Like, let's get after it. But you can hear the clean is a great example of being able to hear that the speed of the bar and how fast they're moving it and what do they have left. And, are we at risk of injury, but Gary, back to Gary, Coach. He's still around, phenomenal guy. I know.
Yeah, tell him I said hello next time you see him. Please tell him I said hello because he is one of the kindest, nicest, and at one time the strongest man in the world.
Yeah, one of the strongest humans to ever walk this planet.
Yeah. For professional football player, NC2A shot put champ, like he did it all.
Oh, he did.
He's done it all.
Yeah, and he's still around. He's still, gives back, and it's amazing to me that he's done it all for free for all these years to these young kids in Baton Rouge. So you talk a little bit about the transfer portal, and I've always had this question and wondered, and I really don't know. When you get a guy in, is there a network? Do you reach out to those guys? Like, what is this, looking for, what have they done? Where are they at?
You know what? That's a good question, Joe. And so at first I did, but then I found out, there's a reason why most of these kids are in the portal. Something didn't go right where they were before, whether it was playing time or they got in trouble, they were asked to leave, who knows, But what I found is that generally speaking, the message that I got from the former place wasn't the same kid that I met here. And their, environment, motivation, buyer's remorse. There's a lot of things that can negatively impact the kids' time at a certain university. And so most of the kids that we've gotten here have been better than the previous school said they were. And I've had multiple cases of that. And a lot of it I don't find out about until I talk to the NFL scouts. And they'll say, have you ever talked to him about this? And I was like, no, indeed. I've never even heard that. Has he exhibited any of that type of behavior while he's here? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. And so it's kind of gives young men, and I'm sure young women, a second chance. And maybe these young men and women say, I did it this way while I was there. This next place I'm going to do it the right way. And so we've been incredibly blessed with the young men that we have gotten from the portal. And this year's group has been much better than last year's group because I don't think Coach Elko was because you're rushed when you're a first year coach. So you end up probably taking guys out of necessity versus doing the research on them. But
with
still,
with the one portal's got to help y'all out with that too.
Yeah, the one portal. Well, the hardest thing about the portal was the salary cap. Mm-hmm. Because you develop your team based on the salary cap and you recruit guys to come here for X number of dollars. And it's hard to forecast who's going to leave at the end of spring ball and what's going to be available out of this next crop of kids. So it's when it comes to managing the salary cap is probably the biggest obstacle of that. And then if, because every kid that comes to college wants to play immediately. But for various reasons, not all of them are going to be ready to play immediately, whether it's based on who's in front of you, what the philosophy was at school A, and now it's something different at school B. The offense may be different. You may be playing more man coverage than what you're used to, or more zone coverage than what, there's just a lot of differences. And I have found that the kids that we have gotten out of the transfer portal have been phenomenal. And not all of them, just like when I was at LSU, we would get kids as high school freshmen as college freshmen that had never cleaned or squatted or benched. If you're a kid from a small country school and you play 3 or 4 sports, you're not going to have the same development that some of these kids that come out of these 7A Texas high schools where they have a full-time strength coach and a 10,000 square foot weight room. There's a difference. And so there is a difference in some of their development, and we train them. It's been challenging, but in a good way, because you get to take a college junior, a 4-year junior or a redshirt junior, or even a senior who only has 1 year of eligibility remaining, and you can show tremendous growth. Like number 9 for us, Cassius Howell, he's on his 2nd year here. He came from Bowling Green. The first time we weighed him in, he was 223 or 24 pounds. And he's 255 pounds now. He's put on 30 pounds of lean mass in a little over a year and a half. So you can still develop them. You can't waste your time. And here's one thing, and we tell them during the recruiting process, we're not going to do things that waste your time and my time that doesn't move the needle toward high performance. So we don't do all of the window dressing and Twitter stuff that you see because we don't have time.
Yep.
We've got to get this kid bigger, or we've got to get him to lose weight. We got to get him faster. We've got to rehab injuries that we didn't know he had during the recruiting process. And then you've only got a year, or no, less than a year to get it done. And so we don't waste time doing things that aren't moving the needle towards high performance. So you streamline your program and you focus and concentrate on those things that you know that work. And then if it's not going to make him bigger, stronger, faster, or leaner, we don't do it. And so it's actually been a lot of fun, and we get after it.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of people probably won't like this, but, people trying in y'all's business in the transfer portal era, try and make people happy and tell them what they want to hear. And I think it's more of with y'all, it's more of either you're with us or you're not type of mentality. This is what we're going to do. Yeah. This is how we're going to get it done. This is where we'll take you. This is where the team's going. And either be with us or don't be with us. And either way, we're going to get better.
Yeah. Well, the better you play, the more money you make.
Absolutely.
And these kids come here, like I told you earlier, I think this is kind of in some way a young man's second chance to do it different than he did the first time, because we haven't had any pushback from anyone. And anyone who knows me knows that we're aggressive in everything that we do. We've always pushed the envelope. And Coach Elko doesn't play either. Like, if you're late, there are repercussions. And now I don't think no one's missed since I mean, there's always, if somebody misses, there's a reason.
Right.
My car broke down. And then if you say my car broke down, you've got to supply photographs and a receipt.
Yeah, we need some proof here.
Yeah, but I don't know if anyone's blatantly skipped a workout here since my first week here, because my job is to help you get better. If you're not here, I can't help you get better. And then if you're not giving effort, a kid can show up but not give effort. But not giving effort is the same as not showing up. You're not going to get any better. And it doesn't matter if you're paying a kid $50,000 a year to play football or $100,000 a year to play football. The better you play, the more money you're going to make. And kids are motivated by that. Before, that you could give them 2 meals a day, a little bit of spending money for laundry, and fruits, nuts, and bagels. It's not like that anymore. Like, our kids eat steak, chicken, and they have a choice of steak, chicken, or fish for 2 meals a day, and that's lunch and dinner. But breakfast, they got pancakes made to order. They've got eggs made to order. They got omelets made to order. They have scrambled eggs, fried eggs, you name it, bacon, sausage, chicken sausage, pork sausage. I mean,
they're living their best life.
Yeah, so take advantage of it. I'm here to help you get better. And if you don't think what I'm doing doesn't work, and I'm going to paraphrase a conversation that I had with Johnny Parker years and years and years ago. I asked him, how do you handle difficult players? And he said, here's what I tell him. Just try it my way for 1 month. Just try it my way. And if you don't see yourself getting considerably better, then let's talk about it. And that's been my philosophy ever since. Just give me an opportunity to try to help you. And if you're not getting better, then we'll sit down and figure something out. But when our kids show up, we develop an extensive profile on them. We call it the force plate combine, because we have 5 force plates, we have 5 NOR boards, we have Perch to do snap down zone. We have Hawkins Dynamics, True Strength. Like, we can test every time our players wiggle. We test them. We have the 1080. Yeah. We have 1080 sprints. Yeah,
those are amazing. Those are absolutely amazing.
It's a game changer.
Absolutely.
And so we developed such an extensive profile that, and they really boil down. You put them in 3 basic buckets. Mine is whatever their injury history is, but you have guys that are just too skinny to play, and they need everything right out the gate. I mean, number one, they need to eat. They need to take their supplements. They have to sleep at night, and then they have to train. But
probably need a cot in the weight room.
Yeah. So other than the skinny guys that are just poor, look like a grasshopper, other than those guys, you're either force deficient or speed deficient. And so we talked about this today. I want to draw a thing real quick. So just like in season, all right, so let's say, I can even do this. So let's say my goal today is, all right, so I've got a little graphic here. Let's say my goal today is 5 sets, okay? And let's say we're back squatting, all right? If a guy is speed deficient, he's going to do 1 or 2 sets here and then 3 or 4 sets here. If a guy is strength deficient, he may do 1 set, 2 set, 3 set, 4, and 5. So the percentages don't change, but it's based on if you're strength deficient or force deficient. If you're a skinny guy, let's say we're doing sets of 3 in season, okay, all the way across. If you're a skinny guy, we'll bump this up to 6 or 8 reps, and you'll go 40, 50, 60, and then we'll look for a velocity decrement there to cut him off and develop hypertrophy.
Yep.
So I can write it up. Yeah, and develop mass. And if you're a guy that's not playing, if you're a guy that's not playing in this scheme, the warm-up set doesn't count, and he'll do 1 set, 2 set, 3, 4, and 5 at triples to get stronger. If he's not playing in the game. But even if you're playing in the game, I can still use this formula here. And my coaches at using Perch, this is all easy to do.
Yeah, it gets it right out there for you.
Yeah, so we put all of our players into 3 buckets. You're too skinny and you need everything. And then number 2, you're force deficient. Number 3, you're speed deficient. And we train them just like that. And it's simple.
And it's that easy. And again, it takes us back to our conversation. I think people try and reinvent the wheel sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's that easy to get results.
Right.
Again, we see it. It's all result driven these days. It's the same. Do you think a lot of that's because of social media where kids want to see the results instantaneously?
Yeah. Well, first of all, so when I was trying to get jobs right out of college, most universities had one strength coach. And that was usually an older position, offensive or defensive line coach that had been kind of put out to pasture, and they put him in the weight room. There
Just
wasn't a
babysit
lot.
And watch them.
Yeah. So I was already in college, and during the summertime, because at Tennessee Tech they didn't pay you to go to summer school unless you were a starter and you were in poor academic condition and you had to go to school. So if you wanted to stay in Cookeville and train, then you had to get a job, and your living expenses, you were on your own. But you could still train with the strength coach and run and lift and do all the stuff. And that's what I did. But I had to get a job to do that. So I had a job working at a state park. And so I was at the park one day, and I see this gigantic man walking through the park. And so I went up to him and I introduced myself to him. And I said, "Who are you?" Because he looked like a professional football player. He looked like a offensive tackle or, a tall defensive tackle. This guy was, probably 6'6", 265, 275 pounds, which was a monster back then. And he said, "No, my name is Bruno Pauletta, and I'm the strength coach at the University of Tennessee." And I mean, I thought I had met, Arnold. I might as well met Arnold Schwarzenegger, right, or Gary Frank, or somebody else. And so we started talking. He was there because the park that I worked at was just north of Knoxville. And so we started talking, and he was the University of Tennessee's first strength coach, and he was a shot putter in Canada. He was Italian descent. He grew up in Canada, threw the shot put at Central Michigan. I think it was Eastern Michigan. He went to Eastern Michigan and threw the shot put. And then he went to the University of Tennessee to get his master's. And he was the first full-time strength coach at the University of Tennessee. And he was a GA. And so there just weren't a lot of strength coaches. They weren't any. Now there's a strength coach on every corner.
Yeah. And has that rule changed since you've been out the back end of how many assistants you could have? Because you talk about, or is it the same?
No, we can have 5 full-time assistants. Yeah, which is crazy. You can have, now there's no rule on the number of offensive line coaches you can have.
Really?
So you could have 5 offensive line coaches. Well, and the rule forever in basketball, track and field, and some of these other sports, there was no limit to the number of coaches you could have. But you could only have 5 strength coaches. At one time in the entire university, you could only have 5 strength coaches. But now you can have 5 in football. But in Olympic sports, you can have as many strength coaches as you want. You could have 20 strength coaches in Olympic sports, but 5. And sometimes, if you have 120 athletes, except for track and field, you're talking about baseball, softball, men's and women's basketball, volleyball, gymnastics, and you still haven't reached 120 athletes. But you could have 20 strength coaches. But in football, for 120 athletes, now 105, you could only have 5 strength coaches. But so we have 5 full-time strength coaches here.
Isn't that amazing from when you first got to LSU, where y'all had to do it all, to now?
Yeah. So when I got to LSU, we had 3 full-time strength coaches and 4 grad assistants, and we did every sport.
Yeah, because Matt and I went and saw Will Jones and some of those old weights from the first weight room. And some of Coach Hatch's first.
That's cool.
Yeah, some of Coach Hatch's first squat stands were in there, and we kind of just talked shop for a while.
Yeah, so when they got rid of those Coach Hatch's old squat stands, I ended up with three sets of them.
Yeah, at
my house. So Coach Seal called me, and because they were just going to throw them out because they weren't bought with university funds. Mm-hmm. And somebody paid for them with their own money. So I went over there and got me 3 sets of those old Coach Hatch squat stands.
Yeah, he still had some in the track weight room that was getting redone. Yeah, and still had the old weights from the weight room in the stadium. Yeah,
the crazy thing about that, Will Jones has probably painted those. Because Will worked for me in football forever. Will, that's probably the 3rd or 4th time that Will had painted those.
I can only imagine. Yeah. We talked a lot about that, but it's crazy to see how much has changed. You talk about from very beginning where you met it's crazy to think about that in 2025, University of Tennessee's very first strength coach. Yeah.
And he was a grad assistant.
And then now I have myself, I have 5 assistants. Because GAs aren't really a thing anymore, are they? Or is it more just intern? Yeah.
No, paid interns.
Paid interns are more the.
Yeah. Now, so I have one every semester. I have at least one intern who's doing an online master's at someplace. So Sam Masterson. So we have a sports science intern. It's a paid intern position. We have 4 strength and conditioning paid intern positions, and then we have 1 sports science paid intern. And Sam is getting his master's in sports science or sport analytics or something from the University of Florida, but he's here coaching and working.
And that's become such a bigger thing, the sports science department, right? And that's
exactly.
And being hands-on, I'm sure y'all have a great crew over there that does it all.
No, not our staff does it.
Y'all do it all. Okay. So, see, I know some places are different. I was talking with the young lady at Auburn, and she's like, I kind of do it all. And I know some places have
do it all.
more and some don't. And it just kind of depends place by place. But
which
I think it's good to be able to do it all, right? You can kind of be more in touch with truly
get immediate feedback.
Yeah, immediate,
Yeah, you get immediate feedback. And we know what we're looking for. And if you're good at Excel and ChatGPT, you can do some, it's the stuff that we're doing now is I would have never dreamed for a second that we or I would be capable of getting the data that Blake and Jeremy and Craddock and Sam give me in a minute's notice. So all the GPS with all of its hundreds of metrics goes into one big file. And we have somebody, well, there's two people, all they do is handle catapult and making sure that the guys have their vest on, make sure the vest is against their skin, and then to make sure that they get the vest back, they get the bugs back, they download it, and then we get a breakdown, after practice, and it's divided by position. You got the macros on there, but then my staff can log into that and pull data and do anything I want. Same thing with the training room. Like the trainer gives us an availability report every morning. Well, I get it in the afternoon, and it's available to me in the afternoon, and Coach Elko gets a copy of it. But then he presents it to the staff at 6:30 in the morning. But then I can take Sam does it, not me, because they don't let me touch a computer around here. But Sam gets it, and he tells me what if it was a contact or non-contact injury, what period it took place in, what his acute to chronic ratio was leading up to that, what his distance was when he got hurt, all different types of stuff, what the prognosis is in his return to play. And that's updated. I get it, I get it every other day or something like that, and then I meet with our athletic trainer. He comes over here every day. And we have a physical therapist. So here's what's crazy is we have a physical therapist just for football. And he's in here training football players that are injured. And then he's at practice rehabbing and working with players that are injured. And that's why right now, so leading up to this week, we've had fewer injuries in the SEC than any team. We've only had 2 guys on our injury list, and one is for a concussion, the other is for a midfoot sprain. And so we haven't had, and then last year we were 2nd or 3rd in the conference last year. This year we've had 2 guys out up to week 8. And so we've been blessed, and it's because of the people that we have in our department, our athletic training, having Joe Girardi, he played football at Miami, not when I was there, but after. And then he was the, Joe, huh? Mm-hmm. Joe was the head strength coach at ULM.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah, and so then Joe, so he was a collegiate head strength coach, and now he's a physical therapist. So Joe's at every practice, every workout.
And it's like having another strength coach out there.
And it's like having another strength coach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he's working with all of our injured guys. And so which was what I always did. So that frees me up incredibly.
And I think you see that a lot more, seeing that physical therapy over to strength coach, strength coach over to physical therapy. It's more and more prevalent these days than I think what people.
We've taken a much more NFL approach to sports nutrition, sports science, sports medicine and rehab, and strength and conditioning. It's a much more NFL type approach than what I'm accustomed to, and it's been really good.
Yeah,
really good, because we have the resources here to do it.
And it's got to go. I mean, it's to bring it full circle. It's just got to be amazing to see where it was. Whether it's at Tennessee or Miami or even LSU, to where it's gotten to and how much.
Yeah, you see all these gray hairs I have right here. Yeah. Coach. But I'm 62. And at this, right now, I think I could probably coach for another, I won't. Nobody will put up with me for that long. But I could coach for another 10 years because now all I have to focus on is the planning and the organization and implementation of our speed, strength, and conditioning program for football. I don't have to do any of the nutrition. I don't have to handle the supplements. I don't have to worry about injured players anymore. I don't have to do any of that.
But that's a testament to how important it's gotten.
Yeah.
To universities, and you talk about arms race. Yeah. That's a testament to how important it's gotten. And now, 38 years in, you get a little head above water breathing.
Yeah, there's collegiate football players that make $1 million a year. Why wouldn't you give them everything that they could possibly need to win football games?
Yeah, it only makes sense to invest in winning. I mean, what it boils down to. That's exactly the stat that matters. It only makes sense to invest in winning.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to go get that money for your program when you're winning versus losing.
Yeah, much easier. So, Coach, it's been, I know you got a lot going on today. It's a big week for you, and you got everything. But something we've been asking guests since kind of restarted the podcast. I got a few off the wall random questions for you.
Okay, good.
All right, so.
Now, you didn't say anything about this in your text
Coach,
message.
I didn't want to because I wanted the true answers here. All right. So if Coach Moffitt had a superpower in the weight room, what's that superpower and what would you call it?
It would be mind reading. And what would I call it? I don't know. I can't say the name that came into my head, but if I could read a player's mind, it would be the greatest superpower of all, because, sometimes when talking to them, I'm like, what are you, like, where are you from? Like, what planet are you from? Coach, but I'd call it the mind reader, or the myth buster. That's what it would be.
Myth buster?
The myth buster, because it's a myth. There's so many myths that come into this, and
it's got to be the same as what we deal with at the high school level every day. It's like, son, what is that really what you thought this was, or is that really what the same repeated questions and the same, and that's what you talk about the gray. That's 3/4 of the gray, Coach, is just it repeated we went over this 5 minutes ago, man. Like, what we're still talking about this right now?
Yeah.
Or, Coach, what's this? Well, dude, we've been doing it for 8 weeks now. What do you mean? What's like? Did I call it something different? Or the thing that blows my mind is when I think I'm trying to make it simpler on kids and something I name it, and it blows their mind. Like, Coach, this
it makes it hard.
It's the same thing, man. It's literally the same thing we've been doing. So that's what's all right. Here's my next one. This is a two-parter. It's whether as a player, as a coach now, what's a go-to movie and book that you would want to pass on to your players?
So the movie is probably Shawshank Redemption. That is, that's probably my favorite movie, other than Fury. Because my dad fought in World War II, was an infantryman and paratrooper, and Band of Brothers. So I would say it would probably be one of those three movies, because my dad parachuted on D-Day. So probably, now that I'm thinking about it, probably Band of Brothers or Fury. And the book, God, there's so many. Probably a multi-year system of weightlifting by Medvedev, or the training of the weightlifter by R.A. Roman, would probably be the book that I would recommend for coaching, and then the Bible for any other reading.
Walk of life, right?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Two good one, Coach. Fury is my absolute all-time favorite. My dad was a tanker. So it really
such a great movie.
He's this is the real, this is exactly how it is on a tank. This is, and he's just very like, that is exactly. And Band of Brothers, I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. My grandfather was actually very similar. He was a paratrooper hang glider.
Wow.
Yeah, into Burma, India. Yeah. So very, very similar to that, and kind of. I remember the first time I watched Band of Brothers. We had just got stationed in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and we're riding up there in the middle of the night. And remember those old little DVD players that you just flip up and you can just put. That's the first time I watched Band of Brothers, the whole series through. It was just like the whole ride up to Fort Knox that's what it was about. It's great. So this has been my favorite question.
I grew up close to Fort Knox and Fort Campbell. I grew up like probably 35, 40 minutes from Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
We lived in right outside of Fort Knox, near Elizabethtown. Right there, we spent, a lot of time. My dad's originally from Columbus, Ohio, so it was right there, Cincinnati, go to Reds. Got to see King Griffey play, and, it was a great time. So this has been my favorite question to ask so far. If you're on a deserted island, you're stranded out there, what's one piece of weight equipment you're bringing?
Ooh,
this could be something functional that you work out with or something that you're actually going to use.
I would probably say a kettlebell because I could chunk it on a turtle and bust its shell, or I could, and it's hard to sling a barbell.
It is.
I guess you could stab something with a barbell, but I would say a kettlebell because I could tie a string to it and fish with it, use it as an anchor if I were able to make a boat. So I would say a kettlebell.
Kettlebell's definitely been the number one answer, Coach. And
really?
That's great. Yeah, because I've been kind of
keeping coaches all think alike.
I've been keeping a ranking system in my head based off that answer. If they say kettlebell, I know where their mind's at in the weight room without even walking into their weight room to understand where they're at. I know exactly the type of personality.
I could train with it.
Yeah, I know the personality they have and everything.
The kettlebell swings, so RDL, single leg RDL, so
everything, Coach. You can press it, pull it. You can do anything, and you can use it for, like you said, turtles, coconuts, trees. You can do a bunch
bust it
of
up
stuff.
with coconuts.
Anything. So, Coach, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, I know you have a lot going on.
Thank you, Joe.
Just to be able to hop on here has been great. It's been an honor of mine to be able to kind of carry on this podcast while you've been a little bit away at Texas A&M doing great things. And
thank you.
I wish you the best as a friendship and just being able to do the things you've done and see that carry on all these years. And
thank you.
No matter where you go. So for all the listeners, you can follow us on X, on Facebook, on Instagram. And I know Coach uses X a little bit. So when he gets on, and you can follow him there, but the results speak for themselves. So thank y'all for listening today. Thanks for listening to the Moffitt Method Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, X, and Facebook, where we share tons of free content to help your team get stronger and win more championships. Be sure to subscribe to our free blog where we post high-quality training insights every week. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great day.